What's good, everybody? What's good? This is my first live stream, my own channel right here. But my name is Davidson Crooks, the Crooks Process here. I am a Tennessee Titans fan. Just a quick intro about me. Most of this page will be dedicated to the Tennessee Titans here. Um, if you happen to catch a playback, I say a lot, but catch a playback, give me a like, give me a follow, comment down below what you tell me what you think. Couple things to note. I do want to add. Do follow me on Twitter at Spawn4288. That's Spawn4288. Also, I do know a show on the side called Fast Break. I go live every Sunday for IE Sports Radio. I do a show called Fast Break with one Dontarius Locke. You find the page on YouTube, IE Sports Radio. Give them a follow as well, and you see our show go live every Sunday. Hit that bell notification, and we set up to go for that as well. So do check us out every Sunday. It's straight basketball on that one. This one, I kind of told the guy who runs it, Larry, that I'll keep basketball into the minimum on this side of things, and then keep everything basketball related there. So, without further ado, why I come here to talk about, and I was trying to do a podcast for him, but seems like a lot of things has kind of changed on the Spotify spectrum to kind of get in and get out. So I'm just going to do this right here. Discuss the Tennessee Titans draft class. And as you can see, kind of got ahead of myself, but right here, we got the number one overall pick, Cam Ward, drafted by the Titans, number one. Let's go ahead and dive into it. But this kind of the lead-up process to this, before I dive into Cam Ward, the lead-in process into this, when I was kind of as Titans fans, kind of, watching and observing and stuff like that, you I was trying to get right. You try to get the best value for your selection. Now, what I mean by that, early on in the process, for me, it's usually like Travis Hunter or Shedeur Sanders. And then like on a distance, I had like Cam Ward, Abdul Carter in the mix as well. That's like kind of like the top four for me. Now, obviously, we know how the Shedeur slide went. I'll dive in more in a little bit. But, with me, it's like Shedeur, Cam, Travis, or Duke Carter. Now, a lot of times fans kind of wanted to do Carter because, the roster's not there yet. But sometimes the quarterback is there. You got to take the quarterback. And we desperately need a quarterback because we tried the Will Levis thing and really didn't go to plan like the team had hoped to do. I had a hope. He's surrounding Will Levis, all these weapons. He signed Cavalry. You had DeAndre Hopkins back in the fold. Signed Tony Pollard. Still got Tajay back there. You kind of drafted J.C. Latham, signed Lloyd Cushenberry, whatnot. So you kind of did a lot of things for him on offense to kind of, signed Tyler Boyd. So you did a lot of things for him on offense side of things to kind of, ease into things for him for year two, and Will Levis did not deliver. And then, folks clamoring for Mason Rudolph, he didn't deliver. So he came in the worst record in the league. Now, you came to the offseason, looking for the quarterback potentially. And Cam Ward, after the draft process, all that stuff, became your favorite. Now, this is a kid, Cam Ward, that from his high school career up till now, that's kind of been like at this level here, then went to this other level here, went to this other level there in Miami. So, like, high school, barely got any offers. In-car word offered him San Antonio. Went there, played pretty damn good. His head coach at that time there got a job at Washington State, took Cam along. Then after that, went to Washington State, played very well up there. well enough that Mario Cristobal in Miami took notice. Transferred from Miami, went to Miami, did his thing, was a Heisman finalist, and you kind of see like the growth of this kid. You kind of can see his work ethic as you get to knowing more all that good stuff. So you knew through this process that quarterback was on the table, but other guys will get other looks as well. Me personally, at the beginning of this process, I thought Shador would be the better fit in Brian Callahan's system. Now, why do I think that? This kind of like, the preparedness, readiness, and you kind of needed a name for for the Titans to kind of succeed, in my opinion. Adjust this real quick. But that's my thing. You kind of needed a name along with that new stadium that you're building up in Nashville. You kind of need a name and to kind of sell. We're going to be real, or Travis Hunter, whatever. But as this process showed, Cam Ward showed them to the brass. Chad Brinker, Mike Brongonzi, Callahan showed them throughout the process that he used to do. Miss Amy as well, because she went down for that pro day in Miami. He showed all of them that was gonna be that dude. Even told us so during that Miami pro day. So once we saw that they canceled the visit for Shador and Travis, all that stuff, Cam Ward's gonna be number one selection. We like some of these fans still want Abdul Carter. We needed a quarterback. You can't punt another year in which you don't know what the Jaguar going to do with Trevor Lawrence. You got CJ Stroud down in Houston. Now, God knows what's going to happen with the Colts in Indianapolis. We'll see about that. But you need a quarterback to compete. And I'm not saying it's going to be like a quick turnaround like Washington did with Jayden Daniels, but if you get like at least like half of that, what they did, and Cam Ward shows promise, then things will be looking up and up. And Brian Callahan might survive it to keep his job. Even though I think his job should not be at risk, in my humble opinion. But anyways, moving forward. So you get to the process, to the draft and whatnot, and who the Titans going to select. I mean, everybody kind of says it will be Cam Ward, but you always got to keep that suspense in the draft. And then when they made the selection, Cam Ward, it was kind of like crickets in a sense. Because like everybody thought Shador going to go, Mel Kiper's having a meltdown. People still thinking Abdul Carter. Some people expected the Titans to trade back with New York, and New York offered the Titans to trade up and all that stuff. But the Titans didn't budge. I give the Titans credit; they did not budge. Give credit to them, that front office. They did not budge at all, and nor should they. So they took Cam Ward number one overall. So what are we getting out of Cam Ward at number one? Well, 6'2" quarterback, guy, unique throwing style. And some of the video I've been seeing from ATZ Sports, Toronto, whoever you follow as a beat reporter, very unique arm throwing motion, hard worker, very determined. I think that's the main thing. He's very, very determined, individual. And I think, could he fit in Brian Callahan's system? We'll see. But I think, as he has shown in his football career, the sky's is the limit for him. The sky's the limit. The sky's the limit for him. And with this selection, hopefully, and I said this on my TikTok video, can Cam Ward stop the bleeding at quarterback? Now, what I mean by that is like go through the Titans quarterbacks over the years. Just the Titans, not the Oilers, just the Titans. Steve McNair, which he was the tone setter of the franchise until he got let go and he went to Baltimore. But after that, Billy Volek, uh, Vince Young, Kerry Collins, Matt Hasselbeck, Jake Locker, Zach Mettenberg. Feel like I missed somebody in between there. You know, Marcus Mariota, which that was a huge letdown how that went down. Then Ryan Tannehill with some mixed results. Will Levis, Mason Rudolph, Malik Willis, Josh Dobbs, all those guys that kind of could have had the brass ring and whatnot, didn't do it. And now hopefully Cam Ward could be that guy to be the grab the brass ring and be that franchise tone setter. Kenny, time will tell. Does he got the right staff in front in Tennessee to do that? Time will tell. I know for Brian Callahan's sake, he got to be that guy for him to order him to keep his job. But for this franchise, this got to work. It's got to. So I love the selection. I know people probably have, Travis Hunter, Duke Carter, great to hire. So be it. But we needed our quarterback here. And you can't go wrong with that. If it works out, hey, got a quarterback, and then drafts on forward, you can build around him. You know what I'm saying? Get a top receiver, whatnot. Clean up that offensive line, whatnot. All focus on everything, like get like an edge rusher, whatnot. But Cam Ward can come in and be that dude and start to bring in the quarterback position for this team. It'll be an awesome thing. Very awesome thing. Now, you knew coming to this draft that the Titans kind of want to trade back and get more assets. Now, they had a high 30 pick. And we saw in the draft, like, Luther Burden dropped out to the second draft. I was like, ooh, baby. Luther Burden? Him and Cam Ward? And then you got a nice little receiver set between Ridley, Luther, right there. So I was like, damn. Okay, we're gonna be cooking and stuff like that. Okay, you spent some money on the offensive line all season, so you got that sell out the way. You could have get edge rusher, but if a first round Cowboy receiver fall to you in a second, now it could have been a repeat of Dorian Green Beckham, sure, but you gotta take a risk like this. Got to take a risk like this. But what they did, they traded back with the Seahawks. They traded back to the Seahawks. They got a third round pick, which I'll discuss here in a second. But they took Olu Femi Oladejo, the edge out of UCLA. Okay. Let me say this about the trade first. I'll say this about the trade first. I didn't mind the trade. I just kind of wish we got more assets out of it. I said that on Twitter. I think Davenport's post about it. He said, "Well, we did get they did get third round pick." That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like and we see how drafts go, and we see in this draft, like some of you see trade up and stuff like that. They give them like fifth and sixth round and stuff like that. All that good stuff to trade up. I'm just saying, in a premium position like this, in the top of the second round, you could have got more draft capital that you're seeking. So if I had to put a grade on this pick, it's a C plus. Only reason I put it at a C plus because you couldn't get more draft picks out of it that quote unquote coveted. You only got like a third round out of it. Like Seattle said, okay, we give up our third and whatnot. And you swap places. That's about it. No. If you only trade up, hey, give us some more. Give us a extra fourth round pick. Give us a fifth or something like that. A second next year or something. No, just a third for this year. That's cool. I just like that you couldn't squeeze another pick out of them. That's all I'm saying. With Seattle. And Seattle's very favorable trading made picks and stuff like that. So it's not like the first time they ain't done that. So I don't know why that front office couldn't get more picks out of Seattle there. But anywho, you took Oladipo at UCLA. I think, with this front office, they said it's going to be like a slow burn, how they build this roster and stuff like that. It's going to take time and all that stuff. So this is like one of those picks that's going to take, a little time to develop, and we'll won't see the fruits of that development here in a couple of years. Now, kind of judging by this kid, seeing the videos, stuff like that, seems like a hard worker, seems like a guy that can come in and get it, seems like a guy that, this past season at UCLA switched to edge for a little bit. So he's kind of due to the position in a sense. So it's gonna take a little getting used to for him. So this pick, which I'm not gonna say I expected a lot, but for Titans fans, don't expect a lot early on. You know what I'm saying? Don't expect like 10 sacks for the season. I think good expectations at least like 4 or 5 sacks and stuff like that is my expectation for Oladipo. But like I said, I think this is like one of these picks. Going to right here, Kevin Winston, the third round pick out of Penn State safety, one of his slow burn picks. Now, but Kevin Winston, I know it's kind of eerie because we drafted Kevin Byard years ago in the third round, I believe, by John Robinson, and he became an all-pro type of player. This one got that same kind of potential. Now, I know they say they had a first round grade in him and stuff like that, but what does that really mean in that sense? Because if he was healthy and stuff like that, he wouldn't win the first round, and you wouldn't have a chance to draft anyways. But anyways, talking about a kid that's coming out from an ACL injury, I believe. So I don't know if he's going to play this year. How healthy is he going to be into going to training camp? Like I said, going back to the slow bird thing, if he doesn't play this year at all, it's not going to be the worst thing in the world. You know what I'm saying? If he plays any time in the season, if Kevin Winston plays any time in the season, ain't great. But this pick right here, I'm really not expecting him to be. Me personally, I don't expect him to be on the field this season. He could be. I mean, it could be work hard to get back, but I don't expect him on the field in the season until like towards the end of the year. So for Kevin Winston, like I said, like one of the other slow burn picks. For me personally, I'd just rather get him healthy and be ready to go in 2026 and whatnot. If you come out and play 2025, cool. But I'd rather see him fully ready to go in 2026. Now, a lot of people kind of pan the Titans because they went 2 defensive players after their quarterback. But then I think the next 4 picks, they kind of really rebounded from that and kind of silence that talk. It picked 103 in the fourth round. They took Chimere Dike, a wide receiver from Florida. Wide receiver from Florida that, despite Florida's quarterback rotation and bad play, played pretty well for the most part. Now, there's a guy that transferred from Wisconsin and had a good, solid career in Wisconsin before he went down to Florida. So for DK, I think this kid is very fast. You kind of need that with this Titans team because over the past years, really didn't have a speed receivers. And when this kid can come and be that speed receiver for this franchise, I think they'll go very well with Cam Ward. But if you look at the stats really don't tell the story and how good he can be. Like I said about the quarterback playing in Florida. So this is one of these picks that, like I said, go back to slow burn. A couple years from now, how more polished will he be? And could he be that good return guy for this team? They got new special teams coach John Fossil. Could be used as a punt returner. Could be. But I think I like this selection. We'll see how he competes in training camp and whatnot. And like I said about in the receiving spots, besides Calvin Ridley, second on down, it's open. Excuse me. Second on down, I mean, it's open. We don't know what the status is on Traylon Burks. Jaquan Jackson, he's back in the number fold. You got Colton Dow, Bryce Oliver, but none of those things kind of screaming, like But DK got a chance to make some impact. So second on down, it's gonna be an interesting camp. Oh yeah, I forgot about Van Jefferson. I'm Van Jefferson as well, but even he's not guaranteed to make it, in my humble opinion. Then also staying in the fourth, Gunnar Helm, tight end out of Texas. I would think it was the fourth round. Fourth round? No, fifth round. Excuse me. No, yeah, Gunnar Helm. Yeah, fourth round. Excuse me. Tight end out of Texas. Really like this pick. You need kind of a tight end, very versatile. I think more of a receiving tight end, but I think if he could work on his blocking, I think he'd be real asset to this team. And then with Chig going to year 3, I believe, or 4, do you keep Chig around? The Gunnar Helm show more promise throughout the season that you pass getting an extension to Chig. And Chig will, let's be honest, Chig won't be that expensive if you keep him around. Be real about it. You know, he ain't gonna command a whole bunch of money if you keep him around. Kind of like a nice little contract, stuff like that. In my home opinion, but you know, he wasn't drafted by his front office, so he might not stick around. But you know, Gunningham got to show some promise first. He got to show like he can push check out the door. So we'll see about that. But I do like the pick. Still got Josh Riley in the fold. So you got a nice little young trio of tight ends right there. Even though you got a coach that don't use the tight end system like that. So we'll see how that works. Next fourth round pick. Elick Maynor, if I pronounce that correctly. Wide receiver out of Stanford. This is the kid that had a great game over Colorado this past season, especially against Travis Hunter. I think he had over 200 yards in that game in which Stanford won. It really kept Colorado out of the playoff push and stuff like that. So that kid, if he can continue on that potential and whatnot, let's see. Let me pull it up. Give me just a second. But if he showed that kind of potential that he showed there in that game, I just use that game as an example. But if he can show potential there and whatnot, I think he got a good chance sticking in this roster. And I think him and DK, guys that drafted by this front office, got a good chance sticking on this roster. I think the only thing the hiccup them in their playing time. What's the status of Traylon Burks? That's my thing. They haven't cut him yet. I don't know what his injury status is at the moment, but it's just like it's kind of like a hiccup that these guys need more reps, and we kind of see the best of Traylon Burks that we're going to see in a Tennessee Titans jersey, in my humble opinion. So I'll pull up his stats. Let's see. 6'2", 210. So very good player out of Stanford. Very solid career. So I think there's a good pickup right here for that front office. There's another pick I really like to hear in the middle rounds. Yeah, I think a potential starter down the line. Jackson Slater, guard at Sacramento State. Very good pick here. And if he kept up with the Senior Bowl and stuff like that, this kid had a very good Senior Bowl. And a kid that can very potentially be starter down the line was what's that guy's name they signed from Detroit? I'm trying to pull up the roster. This damn thing's not working. Give me just a second. That's the only thing about doing this live video form is like I could do the podcast and I could be silent for a second, but with video you gotta keep talking, you gotta keep talking, you gotta keep talking. I'm trying to pull it up. Let's see. The guy's name who they signed for Detroit was Kevin oh gosh, I should have had this shit. Let's see. Kevin Zettler, excuse me. I'm sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize for that. Yeah, Kevin Zettler, guard from they signed from Detroit. If you learn under him for a good year or so, and then Jackson Slater can come in and be a starter for you, that'd be great. That'd be another great selection there. And now your offensive line is kind of young across the board if you really look at it down the line. Um, Banks, Skoronski, Lloyd Cushenberry, who's come back for the Achilles, Jackson Slater, J.C. Latham, looking pretty good right there. Of course, development and whatnot and coaching, but if you do all that, that's pretty good, damn good right there. But I did really like this pick in the fifth round for them. Sixth round pick, pick 183, Marcus Harris, corner out of Cal. I think this pick was just more of like a special teams look and whatnot. Could he come in and play time at corner? Probably so, because they cut Cheeto Awuzie away for some reason. So I don't know what was a rush for cutting him. You could have kept him around for another year and see what happens. But anyways, what's need in limbo and whatnot. But in any case, Harris, like I said, corner depth guy. We'll see if he'll stick on the roster or whatnot. But could be a special teams guy as well for most of the part on that side of things. And lastly, Khalil Cummings, running back out of Michigan. Another guy that's probably just compete for the third roster spot. I mean, third running back spot. You had Tajay and Tony Pollard there, so you got those two kind of set in stone. Unless things happen, they trade Ray Tajay. But for Khalil Mullings, we're to see if he does stick in the roster because he's still brought back Julius Chestnut. A guy that they like, special teams dude. So can he come in and see Julius? That'd be a tough thing to sell. Tough thing to do because Julius has been for the past few years and been kind of really steady there at the third running back spot. But if I had to give a grade for this group, if I had to give a grade, and I don't know one of these people who do drafts and stuff like that, like gives A pluses, all that stuff, because you're not going to hit all your draft picks. Let's be real. You're not going to hit all your draft picks. Yeah, Campbell coming to be great. That's an A plus right there. But it's like how the other picks under him affect, go along with this team. You know what I'm saying? People's always, a lot about Pittsburgh's drafts and stuff like that. Oh, they did great, bam, bam, bam. But then 3 years down the road, those guys are not on the team. My Titans here. Hey, some of these guys ain't on the team no more. Isaiah Wilson, great example. So you can't grab, say A plus, A minus, A whatever, B plus. It's kind of hard to draft that, give a grade that high. But if I had to get a grade for the Titans, for the most part, if I had to get a grade, I'd give him a B minus. Cam Ward, you had to take the pick. Best overall quarterback, you had to make that pick. The second and third round picks, while I like them, I think there were other guys. And going back to Kevin Winston real quick, I was a big Xavier Watts guy. And for some of you I don't know, I used to live in Bellevue, Nebraska and whatnot. And still got connections and stuff like that with people up there. And Xavier Watts was a kid out of Omaha school district, Omaha Burke specifically, I believe, and went to Notre Dame to play football. And he was a guy I was kind of looking at even like second round. And then he fell to the third round and eventually got scooped up by the Falcons. But he was the guy I was kind of looking at like Titans to get. Like, you need a safety. I'm like, okay. He's still there, but you draft Kevin Winston, who still come off the injury, and you got Xavier Watts that had a great run with Notre Dame to the national championship, which they eventually lost to Ohio State. Like I said, I mean, I know it's like slow burn, not expecting a lot of these picks to be like all pros in year one, but I'm just saying, like, can we accelerate that process kind of early with some healthy dudes on the field first without like taking some risk? I know you take risks in draft and stuff like that, but I'm just saying, when people saw they drafted Kevin Winston, people thought go back and thinking like, damn, John Robinson sticking here and whatnot. Just saying. The two defensive guys don't hate it, but I think even going defense, I think there's still better players on the board, in my opinion. Now they turn out to be great, cool, it's whatever. But the kid from Marshall who went to the Ravens, he had first round grades. Now I know he had those charges come up on him and whatnot, but I still kind of took a gamble on him late in the second round. They didn't. They kind of probably took him out of his board once those allegations came up. So no fault to them there. But I think that, still there are other guys that were on the board that you could have taken. But I think what really kind of saved them was the offensive picks in the fourth and fifth round. I love those picks. They seem like the guys can contribute in different avenues of the team, or special teams, or Jordan Four for receivers and whatnot. And then, like I said, Jackson Slater as a guy, who we could potentially see as a right guard of the future for this team. And then their last two picks, Marcus Harris, Khalil Mullings, guys that, special teams guys that can earn a way on the squad, in my opinion. So I give it a B minus. No big things and stuff like that. Like I said, Cam Ward is the main one. And I think with his um, work ethic, I think, it's going to kind of elevate this team. And I think, with Cam, what we kind of see in mini camp and stuff like that, that he's taking command in his team. Now I know they said that Will Levis is going to come and compete and all that good stuff, but I think Cam Ward, and after a while, I think Cam Ward is going to just be in all these guys after a while. Now, I'm not saying Will Levis didn't try to do that as well in his time. When the opportunity presented itself, he did. Let's be real, he did. He took the guys down to Mexico, Florida and stuff like that, took them all out. He did that. And I'm not saying he didn't do things to kind of assert himself as a leader, but I just thinking Cam's another dude there. You know what I'm saying? And some of the reports saying that the guy's not running routes right. He told him, "Hey, was running back, do it again." Kind of make it more crisp, make it crisp. You know, the simplicity of things and make it crisp, all that stuff. It's like I think was get the easy stuff out the way and then get the hard, and then we'll kind of like focus on the hard crap down the road. Make it easy, all that stuff. Show me how you feel, all that stuff. Where you want the ball at, all that stuff. I think that's what Cam's trying to get with these folks. So we'll see how that's going to shape up. Now, before I get out of here, the schedule release came out. No primetime games for the Titans, which is I'll say this. I expect at least one. With no more overall pick, you expect at least one. I was listening to ADT Sports earlier, and today, talk about the schedule. They said the last one they didn't get like a primetime game was Cam Newton. So, which I kind of had to look back and like, damn, he didn't get no primetime game, and what he did at Auburn. And I know that's come off the scandal and the money taken, blah 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 blah, all that stuff. But still, you talking about Heisman winner, national champion winner, all that stuff. Took a sorry ass, and I live in state Alabama. Took a sorry ass Auburn team. Besides him, Nick Fairley, Michael Dyer. What's the tight end's name that died in the car wreck? I forgot his name. It'll come to me. But those dudes. That's really about it. That Army squad. And he took him to a national championship and won. But I ain't tripping. I expect at least one, at least like a Thursday night game at least. But damn, they didn't give us that bone. But anyways, they opened the season up against the Broncos on the road. So, going against a Bronco team that's kind of really improved under Sean Payton, improve, under shadiness, in my humble opinion. But, nonetheless, they improved. Bro Nix played pretty well for the Broncos. The defense really has kind of really come along, as well. So it's for those receivers I just talked about, Calvin Ridley and stuff like that, they got good strong tests in week one. You know what I'm saying? So we'll see in the offensive line, it's a strong test out the gate, for week one. For the Tennessee Titans and whatnot. But let me pull the schedule up. Let's see. Let's see. And then the next week, you got the Los Angeles Rams at home. And you talk about another team that has improved their defense over the past couple of years. There's some of the nice young dudes that have really come along for the Rams. Still got Stafford in the fold. They signed Devontae Adams. No more Cooper Kupp. He's up in Seattle. So the Rams are a pretty tough team right there in week 2. They, of course, they come all the way from LA. So, and that's a noon kick. And then the week after, you got the Indianapolis Colts at home. Who they be starting at quarterback at that point, it's tough to say. I think they improved in some areas, but that offensive line, they lost a lot of guys to the offensive line. Like, what y'all really doing? They did draft Tyler Warren. I did like that pickup for them. But offensive line wise, I was like, what y'all trying to do there? In my humble opinion. And then same thing with the Texans, like, what y'all doing with y'all offensive line? And they drafted a lot of receivers and whatnot. But like, y'all need offensive line to keep up CJ Stroud. And you talking about like the Titans off D line. This fucking app. And you saw I saw, they trade Lamin Tussle. And then I ain't know they signed Cam Robinson. I just have to look over like, damn, they signed Cam Robinson. And then in the past season, I didn't know Cam Robinson got traded to the Vikings. So they got Cam Robinson there replaced Larry Tussle, but that's like a rental. And then you got coming in year 2, Javonte Sweat, Jeffrey Simmons, Sebastian Joseph's Day. With that group. I look at the Texans, so it's like, what else? Then you got the Cardinals after that Texans game. You playing Arizona. We'll see how they look. The Cardinals team is kind of tough to gauge, in my humble opinion, but we'll see how they look there. Then you play at the Raiders in Las Vegas. That's Geno Smith, Pete Carroll. So we'll see how they be. That'll be a tough matchup because Pete Carroll's always coached his teams well. But I didn't really see any improvements with that team, especially draft wise and defense wise. And they had a lot of cap to use, so maybe they want to go all out and whatnot. But I think if we can't Ward, if he's starting at that point, hopefully get some rhythm going and have a big game against the Raiders. And then I think the real big one, in my opinion, could have been primetime one, a Thursday night one, or something like that. The return of Mike Vrabel to Nashville on October the 19th. Patriots coming back into town to play the Titans. So we'll see how they are at that point. For both teams, how Drake May is, how Cam Warrior is, how the coaching is, and whatnot. The Patriots done some great things in the offseason. So that's the real main one I'm kind of looking forward to. And then you got the Chargers coming to you November 2nd. That's going to be a tough grinding out game there. You end the season with the Jaguars. You do play the Saints. You do get the Chiefs at home on December 21st. So, that's always been a good matchup for the past few years for Chiefs and Titans. Both teams always kind of play tough with each other. So I think, it should be a good matchup there. You go to San Fran. What version of the 49ers you going to get at that point? And then you got the Browns in week 15. How the Browns going to look at that point, and does Shedeur Sanders start at that point? So for them, early on, it's kind of tough. kind of like a filling out process, and kind of like last year, kind of like a filling out process, but you don't know how things are gonna go to week. And we saw that last year that Jordan Love gets hurt. He didn't play against the Titans, but he had Malik Willis there, and then he carved it up for a little bit. And then he had Aaron Rodgers led Jets that was a mess, as we can tell. So you had advantages. Early part last year, you didn't do it. This year, we'll see what happens. And like I said, the NFL is week to week, so we'll see what happens. But if you get early breaks and stuff like early in the season, like last year, you gotta take advantage of those. And I think that's one thing put Brian Callahan in the hot seat. Like, can you take advantage of those early gifts that he didn't take advantage of last year? Like the Bears matchup with the rookie Kelly Williams, and the defense plays great, and the offense just kind of did blah. The Jets, that's like a 50-51, but could have played better in that one. The Packers won. No Jordan Love, and yeah, Malik Willis, like I said, carved it up. And then for the Dolphins one, you won the game, like you won and lost. Like you really didn't beat them, and Snoop Huntley kind of hit a couple of deep balls. Probably would have lost that one too. It was gonna be real. So that's my thoughts there, ladies and gentlemen. If you've seen this, hey, like I said, like and subscribe. I'm gonna try and pump out some more content here. Uh, Tell me what y'all think. Hey, no primetime games for the Titans. Is that like a huge deal to y'all? What y'all think about the draft picks? Do y'all like them? Love them? Do y'all don't like some? Whatever. I like them. We'll see how they work out come training camp and whatnot. You got mini camp coming around the corner. Then you got the summer, and then you got training camp right there. So we're getting close to football season. But this is the Crooks process. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.